All right, we're live. Bassam, we're going to let folks get settled in. It takes a minute.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. We're going to let folks get settled in. It does take a minute for folks to join.
Awesome. So I'll just awkwardly stare at the camera then.
You can awkwardly stare at the camera.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here.
Okay.
We're going to let
How's your summer going, Ellis?
Summer's going well. You know, it's been kind of an odd summer, I think. I don't know. It doesn't feel like summer. For some reason, last summer felt like more of a summer than this summer. I don't know why.
Interesting. So I just got back from Europe and it was 100 degrees and packed everywhere. And so it felt like summer, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's back to work though. It's back to work. I'm still jet lagged.
It's back to work. Yes. It's been, extremely fast year. And Bassam, we were talking earlier, and by the way, thanks everyone for joining in. I see folks are getting settled. Thanks for joining us today. This year has felt faster than any other year, especially because the speed of the technology that we're talking about with AI, it's really moving fast.
And I know we keep the opinions to the Control Alt Human podcast, and this is pure brick, but I'll tell you, news is like we get carpet bomb news like on an hourly basis. And that's why I think part of it feels so fast.
100%. Well, thanks everybody for hopping in. See a great list of folks. We have some new faces. I see some of our clients are here as well. So thank you to everybody for joining. A very, let's say, interesting topic today, robotics in the back office. Sure. You're probably wondering what this is going to be about. And I think this is something we talk a lot about. And the goal today is that if everyone can come away from this conversation, this webinar, understanding the difference between software and robots. And when we say robots, we don't mean an actual robot, although that maybe one day that's types on your keyboard. These are digital robots.
Yes.
And someone said to
a lot of robotic pictures, but it's trying to
just to kind of get the point across. But we, especially in construction space, and we see folks in manufacturing, robotics. The concept of robotics makes sense, and I think what we forget is that robotics exists not only in the real world, it also exists digitally. And someone said something interesting to me the other day. They said, in construction specifically, we're going to learn about how to deploy robots in the field from digital robots. Wow. And I think that's a really interesting point. So maybe as we kind of get kicked off here, Bassam, what led you to being interested in digital robotics? What have you learned from how other industries are doing this? A little bit of your background and story, sure, maybe before we hop in for the new.
We do so many of these, and I know a lot of people have not met me before or have not listened to one of these. And I always tell the same story, but I'm going to actually add a little spice to this version of the story. So, it actually came back to me. I was talking to an old friend, and the whole thing came back to me. The robots came up for me not in 2016, which I often tell people. I was actually, believe it or not, AEC Systems 2005. I was on a panel with a representative from Sage. She was like 1,000 years old at the time. But a representative from Computer Ease or some other system. And we're all sitting up there, and every single one of them talked about this transition of staff. Like what happens when staff comes, what happens when you have to onboard new staff. And I remember saying this, and the first time I've ever used it, and somebody actually said it back to me 2 weeks ago. If only there were knowledge bots that could function and have continuity of work that would do the work for you that you're hiring staff to do, at least some of that work. And so that's actually where it goes back 20 years. The idea that you could create a line of code that can simulate human behavior, whether that was germinated through War Games, the movie, or what we saw in 2016 with bots being not so good. I mean, there were a lot of bad bots out there. They're buying up, Taylor Swift tickets and Nike shoes, but they're also posting to Facebook and Twitter. And I think what ends up happening is that we talk about bots, we talk about robots, and people have started to confuse them with agents. So that's one thing I want to make sure we understand the difference. But what a robot is and what a robot really does and why I think it's so important, why I'm here is I think we have enough software login passwords. I didn't want to create another software company. Quite frankly, software companies, Salesforce being one of them, they're getting killed in AI right now. They're getting killed. And the reality is you can't be a software company that dabbles in AI. Brick is an AI first company, and we're dedicated to being an AI first company with its main focus around AI autonomous robots. And what I mean by that is an autonomous robot is trained like Jenny or Johnny that walked into your office today. You enable the robot just like you enabled them. You give them usernames, passwords, an email address, maybe even a cell phone number. And you let the robot do its job. That is what an autonomous robot is meant to be. And when you think about that, it's so different than selling software. Software is me training, let's say, Ellis on how to use a software package, how to navigate, how to enter data. I go away as a software company. I just hope you keep on using more and more and selling you more seats. Here, I want you to reduce the number of seats you have in your office. I just want you to offload tasks to a robot that you don't want to do. And remember, Ellis, we're not some fly-by-night AI company. We're not two guys in a truck, dollar in a dream Y Combinator. We have actual clients. We have hundreds of clients. And last month alone, we did 2.6 million automation minutes. 2.6 million automation minutes. 45,000 people hours in reducing the requirement of humans navigating, entering data, tracking data, extracting data. That is a big deal. And that's why our mission right now is to create that autonomous workforce for not just construction companies. We've gone far beyond the construction spectrum, although construction is my heart and soul. But we have companies that run the gamut of industries in the United States. And there is a need to bring knowledge, robotic workers into a company to do the work that we can't staff or cannot do fast enough. And it's just as simple as that. It is not just something we do. I think it's a movement. This is akin to transforming the assembly line in the 1970s to an autonomous robot assembly line with humans monitoring it versus a human-driven assembly line. I think that is how monumental this is.
Yeah, 100%. And Jerry, you put a comment in, can we explain the difference between bots or not agents? We're going to get into that. Yeah, and I think why, look, I put these companies on here, Amazon, Waymo, Ford. You mentioned the Ford assembly line. 100 years ago, it was 200 people on an assembly line with 2 cranes. Today, it's 50 robots and 2 people managing it. Now, Ford has not shrunk. Ford has got bigger. I think the other thing here is like, most of when we think about robotics, it's replacing manual work. Jobs will change for sure, but I think most companies that we talk to are just struggling to fill seats. They're not going to be firing people necessarily, but roles will change.
100%. And actually, to get into, and again, this is not the Control Alt Human podcast, so no opinions. Sometimes I delve into opinions.
I think folks like to hear opinions.
The reality is there is a population curve issue. We have a full demographic issue with the population in the United States and Canada. Like, we are not producing enough people to staff every job we're going to have open over the next 10 years. So if you want GDP growth to continue, you're either adopting AI, robotic technology to replace humans in certain work streams, or you're just not a company because you're not going to be able to staff it. It is that serious.
Yeah, 100%. And so the example I like to use, with Waymo, and I don't know if anyone here has been in a Waymo. I know they're spreading out across the country, or Tesla. There's a divide happening in technology where you think about Uber, right? Uber was an innovation in how you hailed a car, right? A taxi. Right. You had an app and it was on demand and it came to you wherever you are. When that car shows up, there's still a human driving it.
100%.
You're automating getting a taxi. But if you look at a Waymo or a driverless car today, Tesla, when you call that that car is driving itself. That is a completely different shift. And that's what we talk about, the difference between automation and autonomy. I think this is a really important concept. I know it's a little bit high level, but I do think it's really important when we're thinking about using AI. How do you describe the difference between autonomy and automation?
This is probably my most overused analogy, and everybody that knows me knows I have a million analogies. It's Roomba. I know you like Waymo. I think a lot of people haven't seen Waymo, but everybody's seen an iRobot Roomba vacuum cleaner. It's Roomba versus a vacuum cleaner. Software is the vacuum cleaner. Software is a traditional maintenance product. Like you went from green screen accounting software to client server Windows-based software to cloud-based software. You know what's the same? That person that on the green screen you put in, for all the Gen Z's, green screen, they used to be. On the green screen, you typed in job number. On the client server version, you typed in job number. On the cloud version, you typed in job number. That is pedaling a little bit faster every time. ROI is strained when I say to you now, go from my cloud software to some other cloud software. You know what the decision is? If somebody's going from Procore to ACC, Autodesk Construction Cloud, it's price. What does that mean about software? It's on the declining side of the curve. Vacuum. Roombas run around the floor. They clean it up. And you get in their way. They kind of try to navigate around you. That's a serious thing. Now, Roombas don't do stairs. So humans will always be in the loop somewhere. But the idea here is autonomy means it happens silently in the background. Our best clients, the executives know that they're running brick, but not anybody else. Right. They shouldn't care. Like, it's not Rosie, the robot from the Jetsons. It's something that's working 7/24/365 autonomously. That was a big wake up moment for us, because when we, we're a growing company, we went through a lot of iterations. People, I'm a marketer by trade, and people are like, oh, you pivoted. It's like, no, we invented our first robot in 2018. And then we try to find ourselves, right? And we listened to a lot of ding dongs that advised us, and they said, hey, write software so people can use it so we can track daily active user. What a totally dumb idea. And it's like, why do I want people logging into yet another software package? That seems ridiculous. And, we discontinued anything that isn't a robot at Brick. And so that's our pivot. We did the smart thing. But when we think about robots autonomously running work streams at your company, and I say work streams, not workflows, because, within estimate to budget is a big workflow. Within those are micro work streams. So mapping an estimate, let's say, to a cost-coded based budget, or mapping a bill of materials to a manufacturing schedule, those types of things are work streams. And that's what I mean by work streams. You want those work streams to happen autonomously 7/24/365. The idea, however, that automation will always exist, which is human assisted. We're going to sprinkle in some foreshadowing about what the difference is between a robot and an agent. And Brick has both, so we'll explain that. But that is something that we're going to really have to delve into, because I think people are really confused. And Ellis, I'm going to turn it on you. You stay abreast of things. Are people confused about AI right now, you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the challenge is where you see, and I'll use this as an example, is there's a lot of traditional software companies that are from that era that you were just talking about, which is the vacuum, which is the tool that a human has to use, that are, let's say, bolting on AI. And we'll talk about chatbots, and they're adding on,
I hear the word co-pilot again. I'm going to blow my brains out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, there's it's a digital filing cabinet. It's just where you're storing documents. Yeah. And I think adding a chatbot on top of that, because AI is like, it's like saying vehicle. There's a lot of vehicles. There's a plane, there's a motorcycle, there's a scooter. There's so many areas. Large language models, chatbots is a part of AI. It is not what AI is, right? And so when we say AI first, the other big thing of this is that with an AI first, and look at the other bucket here, digital workers, system of action. It's not a tool that you use, right? Does that make sense? Like, it is something that uses your right. It takes action on your behalf, and that is I think where folks kind of have to rewire their brains a little bit because they go, oh, I buy an AI tool. How do I use it? It's like, no. It uses the things that you already have in place. Honestly, like outside this room here, people shouldn't know that you have these things running in the background.
Yeah, if they know about a robot running in the background, it's not doing its job.
Right, 100%. Okay, let's talk about some of these definitions. And I think part of the confusion too, Bassem, is that there's just a lot of terms being thrown out into the market today.
Yeah, it's almost too much.
Almost too much. How do we define these three
this
areas?
Is like the bane of my existence. There, check out my LinkedIn article, Agents versus Robots. And we have no vested interest because we have agents, we have chat, and we have robots. So Brick is like Switzerland. So we're doing a public service announcement here. And I think it's confusing to folks. So I want to explain it. I see IT folks on the call. So anybody that's in finance operations, earmuffs, or just ignore what I'm about to say. Robots are written in a different code set than agents. So just understand that at its core, in chat, at its core, robots are written in a different type of technology than agents are. That's one thing from an IT perspective, because I see some IT. They're fundamentally different engines, different runtimes. They're fundamentally different. They work together, but they're fundamentally different. What is a robot? A robot has a neural layer that has been taught to think, act, read like a human. So at the core of a robot is an operating system, a work OS, if you will, that has learned to act like a human. At first, we chose project engineers, and then our next robot core was finance people. And now the next robot core is operation people, project managers, and drawing managers, and those types of things. And then the next robot core was business developers. And we train them to be the best at their job. Think about a guy or a girl you see on LinkedIn, 20 years of business development experience. That's the core of that robot. They have skills. Robots have skills, very specific skills. I can search the internet, find leads. Those leads can be compared to other projects that I have in my memory that match or are better for me. I can evaluate go, no go. I can download an RFI. I can fill out a compliance table. I can do things autonomously and then raise a hand when I'm like, we're going to go on this project. We're going to bid this project. That's what a robot is. A robot is a human replacement. It's when you think about robots, everybody thinks about the person walking around, fine. When you think of a robotic arm, the idea here is you wouldn't call a robotic arm an agent. You would call a robotic arm a robot. And so the technology is different. The idea that it works 80% autonomously is different, right? An agent is a small set of code written traditionally, potentially in Python, but written traditionally on top of a large language model. So an agent is something you, Ellis, can use like Claude, like ChatGPT, and say, hey, I need you to write me a contract based on these 5 past contracts. And then they will produce a contract. It will write. So the first agent anybody in this call has ever used was ChatGPT. You asked it to do something, and based on its retained knowledge, it would generatively, this is generative AI, generatively produce a response. It would generate the response. That is agentic. So an agent can also call on a robot. So it's it'll look fun. So I ask an agent to go enter an AP invoice for me. The agent will send instructions to the robot, just like a vendor emailing me an invoice, the robot will pick up. So an agent can ask a robot to do something. A robot does much more complex work than an agent. An agent will search the internet for you, maybe give you a great recommendation of an itinerary to go to Europe, which I used. That's great. Agents are extremely, extremely important. Think of agentic as the next stage of BI. And I think that's the most important conversational point.
Hmm.
When we say co-pilot, when we say, you know, what we're trying to do here with agentic, what ChatGPT is, what Anthropic is, what these other companies are trying to do with agentic, the first thing they really talk about is, can I simply get better data responses to queries I have? That's really kind of where agentic in our age group, you know, that's where they think agentic is going. The next version of agentic is code being written by the LLM. When I say code being written, if I ask Claude to analyze an Excel spreadsheet, Claude in real time writes Python code that opens up the Excel spreadsheet and parses it. That's a very different thing than a robot. A robot has a departmental skill set. The robot works within legal compliance of the systems of which it logs into. The robot has a certain criteria of making sure they work. The robot is an employee. Claude doesn't care what your Python coding standards are. It just wants to get to the point. Agents are slightly more dangerous than robots. The difference here is you got to choose the right tool for the right job. If I want to continue prodding something, which projects are losing money? Where do I find my next? If I want to ask questions and get responses, or if I want to be able to use small micro task style automation, the right tool for the job is an agent. If I want to use a departmental automation and optimization plan that has a result where we are going to go from 100 million to 500 million in sales by only adding 2 additional salespeople to my 13 that I have today, it's a robot. It's the workload. Robots handle more, they think more, they retain more. They don't live in a chatbot. They are independent, autonomous, hopefully it's not sentient any day soon, sets of code that does really heavy lifting work. Somebody said that robots are deterministic. They're more deterministic. Agents are less deterministic. I actually disagree with that. I think robots are closer in kind to humans than an agent ever will be. Because as you train robots, they gain instinct. And that was one of the things that, you know, Brick added. It's basically using, you know, robots converge with agents or, you know, with large language models, using large language models to understand intent. That's where things get a little bit gray. Robots do use LLMs. And so I appreciate people that are, you know, confused by the technology a little bit, but that's the inside baseball, Ellis. Like if you're in manufacturing or if you're in large project-based business, you're in construction, you shouldn't care. What you should care about is your business outcome. And if your business outcome is to scale with the same number of people, then robots are your answer because they're not used. They're not people. Nobody needs to use a robot. That's the whole point. That's what we're trying to get at. If you want to give better access to information and micro task completion, that's an agent use case. It's very, very clear to me. Unfortunately, it's just very cloudy because, you know, look, Salesforce is getting killed on Agentforce, right? Great company, love Salesforce. Agentforce is just a complete dud. Complete dud. The reason why is, you know, very simple. I want you, the salesperson, to use Agentforce to update opportunities. Here's an example. Oh, look, Agentforce can add notes to an opportunity. Please add notes to this opportunity. Great, easy, micro task. Is it really much better? Not really, but whatever. Now we go in, okay, I want you to update the 3 custom fields that my company wants us to update, which is, you know, the ABC ranking of all these custom fields that are in Salesforce. And Agentforce goes, what is that? What's the context again? And it doesn't understand the context because agents only understand limited context in the moment it is occurring. It has very little retained memory. It has very little retained skills. Our business development autopilot product does similar things. but it's a robotic business development professional. You can ask the agent to ask the robot to do something. Please add my notes, update these 5 custom fields, but the robot works on the front end, not at the API layer. It's logging in like a human. It's a very different mentality, robotics versus agentic.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other, it's, you know, if I go back to the vehicle analogy, planes, trains, and automobiles, like sometimes when you take a trip, you know, when you're traveling in Europe, there's planes, there's trains, and there's automobiles. It's when we say AI first, it's like you need all of this. An AI agent alone, right? You can't have just one piece of a platform and get the output.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, today is the day, you know, this is our Independence Day, a couple of weeks late. The companies that are mugging you for licensing revenue, that have put a ChatGPT wrapper in the top right-hand corner of their software and called it, you know, macaroni, called it AI, tell them they can take it off if they're trying to charge you for it. Like literally, because the value of that is net zero, literally.
Yeah, and I would put that more in the chatbot category where you have, you know, an application that you're running, and then they put in a chatbot in the right-hand corner. It's, you know, it's clippy. I think it should be a free feature. I think of the 3, you know, the chatbot is probably the least sophisticated.
And I mean, those have gotten a little bit better. Ask the chatbot to go put in an AP invoice into Computeries. Good luck with that. Or ask an agent to do the same. It would have to write code to write it's not like real. It's just, you can't do that. And there are AI first companies that are Fugazi too, right? Like, don't get me wrong. There's like AI first companies that, you know, have 3 pilot programs and $20 million to spend on marketing and are just like out there, like really disrupting the market because they're so Fugazi that when a client or somebody tries to do something with it, they go nowhere, and then they sully the name of AI. Because everything's, you know, so we have to be careful of AI first companies as well. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot out there that are very, very questionable, and some in our industry. But when you really think about practical use cases, you think about the idea, right tool for the right job. And if you're AI first, like we are, you kind of need all the tools. So we have chat, we have agents, and we have robots. And like, you need all of that. And we have infrastructure as well. Like, you need all of those things to be an AI platform. You can be a software company that sublets that technology or some of that technology from another company, but that software company has just become a reseller of AI, not an AI company.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so we're running low on time here. And then, you know, Todd asked a question about invoice formats. And I think this is probably plays to the broader, like, where do you deploy this stuff? Where do we see this thing being deployed?
So I can't see the question. What was the question, Alex?
So Todd, can you please provide the white pages on the best practices for invoice formats?
I don't know if Todd's still on there, but AR or AP, like accounts receivable, accounts payable. Yeah.
Let's just start with accounts payable. I think that's probably
there should not be any rules on invoice formats. Like, the world is a full contact sport, and you can't hire, like, imagine hire Ellis as the AP manager at your company, and Ellis goes, well, I'll only read invoices that look like this. And then you're like, Ellis, you're fired. Like, it wouldn't make any sense. Like, so vendors can include more details on the invoice. I think that's a good idea. Like, give me the PO number at least, or who bought it. Like,
job number.
Say again?
Or the job number. I mean, sometimes
whatever that happens to be. But no robotic worker is going to like stop reading an invoice and understanding that intent. That's a very big thing. So you need intelligence layers in robots and agents, but generally there is no best practices. For me, the best practice generally occurs in the procurement side. If, you know, listen, we work in a lot of crazy critical industries where it's, again, a full contact sport. You need 1,000 widgets today. You pick up the phone, you get 1,000 widgets, right? Because you need to do something. And, you know, PO number be damned and all of that. We just want those widgets. There are realities where we can't change the way the workforce operates in the field. And this is what I liken it to, Ellis. Trying to get vendors to change the invoice format would be like Tesla with their autopilot trying to change how stop signs look. You can't. You just have to deal with the stop sign. You don't train it on, I can only read squares. So can we make all the stop signs squares on the planet so autopilot can work? It's not how it works. You have to play the game that is on the field today in order to get value out of AI. So there should be no limitations on the invoice formats your robots read.
Yeah, that's good. And then kind of where do you see, and obviously for folks that we spend a lot of time, I think, in a really important part talking about the difference, robots, agents, chatbots, but where do we see these autonomous workflows being rolled out with our customers, Bassam?
Number one autonomous workflow right now is procure to pay. That makes up over 60% of our entire traffic. Of the remaining 40%, it's varied between FP&A functionality, accounts receivable, contract to billings, and now the hottest topic, risk and legal compliance. Insanity. Because there's a lot of fugazi out there too, like drag a contract and get a new contract, whatever. Yeah, ChatGPT can do that in 5 minutes. Validating if there's fraud on your COI or actually managing your compliance or safety certificates, those are robotic, not agentic. And so I think we're seeing a lot with risk. There's a question always when I'm on calls with prospects or clients, like, what do you think we should be looking at next? I don't necessarily subscribe to like the contraction of the economy, but there are people that believe the economy will contract over the next 2 quarters. And in that case, business development is going to be so important to companies that don't have large sales orgs to continue their revenue flow so they don't have to cut their staff. And let's say, we've been in an incredible bull market in our industries, like incredible. Like you think about the volume of work that's happening everywhere. Everyone's growing, everybody's traveling, whether it's logistics, trucking, manufacturing, all of this is all growing and growing and growing. I don't think we've seen real contraction since we recovered from the Great Recession. So if there is contraction, I think business development is where people should go next. And we're seeing a lot of that in bigger companies that are seeing, hey, I need more sales. And business development robotics is really working out for some of those.
Yeah, we also see it too for a lot, we have a lot of different types of contractors in other industries, but if you're manufacturing as well and you're, getting leads and you're producing proposals and quotes, that time to lead, that time to quote is really important as well. We see a lot of,
exactly. If you have 2 divisions, one that is transactional and one that's more custom, like many of our clients do, transactional lead to quote workflows can be 80% made autonomous very quickly. So like you get a request that comes in, it becomes a quote, it gets approved, gets sent back to the client in 15 minutes, not 2 days. We have some of the largest manufacturers on the planet running bricks lead to quote robots. And so think about like the scale of what we're doing. We're thousands and thousands and thousands of transactional quotes being produced by our brick robots every day. So think about it for your business. I love that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Bassam, we're up on time here. If there's any other questions, I put a link in the upper right-hand corner. It says meet with us to dive deeper. You can also go to brick.com/demo. We would love to show you these things working in action, go into more detail around, hey, tell us, say, here's where it hurts. Here's where I'd like to work 30%, 60%, 80% faster. We'll be happy to kind of dive deep into the process and show you how this all works. So
have fun, everybody.
Well, thanks everybody for attending. We'll send out the recording for those that want to recap it. Thanks everybody. Bassam, thank you for being with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.